And welcome back, Bears fans, to our first post-game show of the season. The Bears lost 23-14. I am your host, Will DeWitt, and today I'm accompanied by my two Bears brothers, Brandon Hazlett and Nicholas Moriano. Brothers, that was a tough game to watch, but how are you guys doing today?
Tough to swallow, but there's 15 more games left, so keep our heads high.
Yeah, like you said, Brandon, there's 15 more games left, but I definitely could be better. That's for sure.
Yeah, agreed, guys. Agreed. Kind of in the same boat here. So, yes, we are the Bears brothers, and this is our first post-game show of the season. So before we get to breaking down this Bears game, I urge you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and receive a notification each and every time that we go live. So, guys, let's break down this game, and let's enter the first quarter of our show, which is going to consist of our opening segments. I'll start off with my monster moment, which is a moment that reminds me of the Bears getting back to that monster of the midway form, and I have to go with that Tracy Porter interception on that opening drive of the game. I mean, that Chicago Bears football. And, for a split second there, guys, the Bears were forcing turnovers on 100% of the possessions they were on defense, which is a pretty good stat to have, at least for a little bit. But that Tracy Porter interception, really good coverage. I love the aggressiveness to go up and get after that ball. And so for me, that's why that interception is my monster moment of the game. Brandon, I'm going to kick it over to you. What is your stat of the game?
My stat of the game, there's quite a few that we could use, but I'm going to go with 4 for 13 third down efficiency. That killed the offense today. They only had 2 first downs in the second half, exempting 2 on the last drive. Another fun stat to throw out there at you. But 4 for 13 on third down. I feel this is kind of similar to what we've seen in the preseason where the offense went stagnant. And it continued in week 1, which ends up hurting us in the second half as we couldn't get any points on the board.
Yeah, but I mean, that's less than 25% of your third down conversions, which obviously does not bode well if you want to try to win a football game. And there's even another stat I like to point out here real quick, that the Bears, before that, 2-minute warning, that final drive that really didn't matter, they only had 2 first downs that entire second half, which is god-awful, and that's obviously another reason why the Bears ended up losing this game. Now we're going to kick it over to Nick for Nick Snacks, which is a highlight of an under-the-radar contribution that might have gone unnoticed. Nick?
I'm just going to go with Jay Cutler and his toughness throughout the game because he was getting smacked throughout the entire game. Offensive line kind of struggled, especially towards the second half, and the guy just kept getting up and was able to play well, play the best of his abilities despite the offensive line being, it played poorly as they did. So I'm going to go with Cutler's toughness for my first Nick and Knack of the season.
I like that. Yeah, Cutler's toughness is always something that kind of goes unnoticed. So before we enter the second quarter of our post-game show, which is breaking down the offense, I first like to talk about our new friends at SeatGeek. SeatGeek, they help make buying tickets much easier because for a long time it's been hard to find the best deals for looking for those Bears tickets, especially given the price of the most of the Chicago Bears tickets. But they've come along and they made an amazing app and website that makes it easier than ever for fans to buy and sell tickets. And I've personally used this before to buy some Indiana basketball tickets, which is really cool. You go right in the app, it tells you what kind of a deal you're getting, if it's a great deal, an excellent deal, a bad deal, so you just kind of stay away from those. So yes, everything about SeatGeek is designed to make life easier for sports and music fans. The best of all, my listeners get $20 off of their first SeatGeek purchase. So to get that $20 rebate, all you have to do is download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code and enter the promo code BEARS. All right. And once you do that, SeatGeek's going to give you $20 after you make your first ticket purchase. So go ahead and download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code BEARS today. So, gents, let's get into that second quarter of our show here and break down the Bears offense. And let's just kind of talk about this unit as a whole before we kind of break down all the positions here. So, Brandon, I want to kick this off to you. What's your overall feeling about this Bears offense after this game?
It was nice to have all the weapons back. First of all, Alshon, Kevin White, minus the one route that he quit running, I thought he looked pretty good for most of the game. The running game was kind of absent, but I liked that they used Jeremy Langford quite a bit. We know what he could bring to the table. They didn't use so much Kadeem Carey today, which is President Kadeem Carey fan club. It kind of hurts, but you got to do what you got to do. John Fox is going to keep in the hot hand. So, overall, I thought the unit in the first half looked pretty good. The offensive line was solid for the most part. Jay Cutler was 10 of 13 for 156 yards and a touchdown at halftime, and Langford only had 8 rushes for 22 yards. I figured that would improve Unfortunately, it didn't improve a whole lot, but overall, I mean, it all kind of evens out with the second half is a neutral feeling.
Yeah, neutral is a good way to go about it. Nick, why were the Bears struggling so much on offense?
I mean, first half they did a decent job and they were able to block, and then the second half, it's weird because in my preview show I said that the offensive line would actually struggle in the first half of the game, but it was the exact opposite. The second half they just could not block, and you could tell that there was not that chemistry built that more experienced offensive lines usually have, and I thought Bobby Massey today was a kind of a guy that who we thought was going to be a big key guy for us, kind of disappointed for me today. Even though Watt didn't have any, the big numbers, still he was a little slow getting off, the line of scrimmage. So I think the big thing is just the offensive line could not generate holes for, Jeremy Langford to get anything going, and then just didn't give Cutler enough time to throw.
Yeah, that first half, guys, when the Bears offense went down there and they were just marching, down the field, they were getting a lot of push. They were winning the point of attack. And I was really, excited to see that because I thought that was going to continue throughout the whole game. But honestly, let's talk about that 4th down and 1. I mean, you're up 7. I take the points because you have all the momentum. You want to keep your foot down. Instead, they go with the QB sneak. Cutler fumbles the snap. And all the momentum from pretty much that point was lost. They gained a little bit more before the half ended, but they were really never able to establish much of anything after that, besides that last 4-minute offense in that first half. But overall, I want to know what you guys would do at that moment. Do you kick that field goal or do you go for it? Brandon?
I would have kicked the field goal. What I did in my game notes is I kept a tally of missed opportunities, and I have that whole drive as a missed opportunity because Eddie Royal started with a good punt. We started on the Houston 40. Then they got to the 4th and 1 on the Houston 30, and the rookie center and Jay Cutler just couldn't connect on that one snap, and that just kind of seemed to turn the momentum against us. I would have taken the points right there because we're still in the first half. Get the points while you can. We were still in the first quarter, for that matter. So get the points while you can. But I understand the aggressiveness that John Fox wanted to show. In my opinion, I'd have taken the points.
I mean, it wasn't a 3-point game, so it wasn't the most deciding of a factor, but obviously it killed that momentum down the stretch. Nick, what do you do in that situation?
Honestly, I kind of like the decision to go for it on 4th down. I thought John Fox was being aggressive, and early on, I think the players want to see that he's willing to take those risks. And, it was just a fumbled snap. That's all it was. I think it's Cody Whitehair at center. He's a rookie. I think it was just a exchange there. They get that. The drive keeps going, and you don't know how that drive ends. I mean, maybe it does end up in a field goal in the long run, but I like the decision, poor execution, but yeah, I mean, of course, I wish it went our way, but
yeah, this is a really strange game there, especially on offense, like you said, tale of two halves. So let's go ahead and go position by position and kind of break down these guys. And of course, let's start with Jay Cutler, the man under center. And I'll go ahead and start. I thought he did a really solid job, especially early on. And then down the stretch, the reason he kind of faltered was obviously the offensive line play. He was just kind of getting him battered down there. He was taking big hit after big hit. But like Nick, like you said in your opening segment, he just kept getting up and he just kept shrugging off those hits, which was good to see. But when he was given time, he was able to find the open receiver down the field. His throws were pretty accurate. And that one interception really more is on Kevin White not finishing their route, kind of sitting there and not really extending it all the way to the sideline where Cutler was anticipating him going. So it's just one of those miscommunications. And Cutler kind of talked about how White's going through some of those growing pains because it's the first time he's been on the field. So I think that's one of those growing pains that Cutler is kind of hinting at here throughout the week. Brandon, how about you? What did you think about the performance from number 6?
That's how many completions he had in the second half, fun fact. 16 of 29 for the day. I mean, he kind of did what he could. Very tough to do when the offensive line doesn't show much support in the second half. He didn't have a completion for the longest time in the second half. So, I mean, he kind of played his cards as they were handed to him. I don't know. Again, kind of with the neutral feeling, I think the whole game just kind of given me that. But overall, I think Jay Cutler did the best that he could with the cards that he had.
Nick?
I have to completely agree with you, Brandon, because the first half, Jay Cutler was accurate. He was spot on, and he was avoiding tacklers. But then that second half, when the offensive line just broke down, we've talked about it before. If you give Jay Cutler enough time, he's going to make the right throws, accurate throws. You take that away from him, you put so much on him to be able to, avoid pass rushers and then have to make that accurate throw. It's tough. I mean, it's tough for any quarterback to do. So I thought Jay Cutler did well with what he had. Hopefully this offensive line gets some chemistry going. But, overall, it was an okay day for Jay Cutler. But, as the line gets better, I think he will get better.
I agree. I mean, at one point, he had a QBR over 100, like 110 in that first half. So, again, when you give him time, he is highly effective. But it shows, like, if you don't give him that help that he needs, things kind of just fall apart for that Bears offense. So, hopefully, down the stretch of the season, he gets more help up front, which will allow this Bears offense to play more like they did in that beginning portion of the game. So, let's kick it over to let's stay in the backfield, and let's talk about Jeremy Langford and the running backs. Personally, I thought he did okay. There's a few instances where, again, the offensive line, which I think we're really going to hit on hard here soon, again, weren't really creating the holes. They weren't really making much of a push, which made it really hard for Langford to get much of anything going. He was able to burst, a couple decent runs on the outside for like 15 yards here and there. So I thought he did a really good job then. But I'm still curious about you guys' thoughts on this. Kadeem Carey was used very sparingly. You didn't see Jordan Howard. Do you guys put somebody else in that backfield to maybe provide the offense with the spark down there in that second half when just nothing was going right? Brandon, how about you?
Do I put someone else back there? I mean, it doesn't hurt. I figured John Fox would use more of a committee because we said it throughout the whole offseason, and he stuck with Jeremy Langford for 17 of the 20 carries that the team had, Jay Cutler having 2 and Kadeem Carey having 1. I would have figured that he would have put someone else in there if he can't generate more than 57 yards that he had. So I would have put someone else back there like Kadeem Carey, or even put Jordan Howard in and see how many guys he can run over because he's a big physical guy. So you got to at least do something a little, put in a spark in Jeremy Langford stuff like, why am I not playing right now kind of thing,
Yeah, for sure. Nick, how about you?
I think Fox kind of realized maybe the offensive line wasn't playing as well as it could have, and maybe just wanted Langford to get that, get it going eventually, and he never did. So I wasn't surprised that they didn't bring in Carey or Howard because Langford really never got going, and I think maybe the offensive line was, a big factor in that. So I wasn't too surprised, and I mean, maybe later in the season, once the line establishes themselves, they'll start doing that running back by committee.
Sounds good. Speaking of that line, I think we should get into that hot topic for the evening. All right, so I skipped the wide receivers, didn't I? So let's go to wide receivers first. We'll stick with those skill guys. All right, so really, wide receivers here. Alshon Jeffrey at halftime only had 4 receptions, but off those 4, 105 yards, and Royal added 2 catches himself for 32 yards in that score. I thought Alshon Jeffrey in that first half probably looked the best I've seen him in 2 years. I don't know about you guys, but that's probably the best I've seen him play in about 2 seasons, especially better than anything I've seen last season when he was kind of dampened with those injuries. But overall, with this wide receiver unit, I was pleased with Eddie and, all 3, Eddie, Royal, and Alshon, and as well as Kevin White. I was pleased with all of them. But just that one miscommunication by Kevin, which results in the interception, which is really that really kind of killed all the momentum that we would have even built up the second half, which kind of led to us losing this game. But I thought it was strange that Cutler really didn't target Kevin White after that interception until like that last 2 minutes of the game. So I can tell that the confidence level in the second-year pro was kind of low there. Brandon, how about you? What did you think about the wide receivers?
Alshon Jeffrey looked very much like he did 2 years ago, like you said. He went up over the top of Kevin Johnson on one of those receptions, which was like a couple years ago-esque Alshon Jeffrey, pre-injury Alshon Jeffrey. It looked really good. I thought, man, this guy is back, and he didn't go out with any injuries today. We've seen him on the bike on the sideline once if you watch the game. So I thought I'm going to give Alshon my MVP on the offense because I thought he played really well, minus the second half when, he didn't get very many targets at all. He had 2 drops in the second half, I believe. Eddie Royal played very well, had the touchdown reception that looked really nice. Kevin White, I wouldn't even call it a miscommunication because he turned on the curl route and started running, and then he just quit. And Jay threw the interception, obviously, so I don't even know how that's a miscommunication. It looked like Kevin White just kind of stopped running on the play. So I give more, I'm not a Jay Cutler supporter very much, obviously, as I've said multiple times. I think about every show to this point. But this is Kevin White's fault, rookie mistake. He'll get it all sorted out. I still have faith in him. He did pretty good for the most part today. He had seven targets, had 3 receptions. So get his hands there. I think just first game jitters. But like you said, those 3 are also my 3 that I really enjoyed watching today.
All right, Nick, how about you?
I thought the wide receivers did a decent job today. It all starts with Alshon Jeffrey. He's a one-on-one matchup nightmare. And I tweeted out earlier in the game when I was watching, I'm like, when he's healthy, I think he's a top 5 guy in the league because this guy just makes catches and makes it seem effortlessly. And Eddie Royal, huge to be back in the offense there. I mean, that nice post route that he had at the end of the half, beautiful route, and had a couple third down conversions. But I kind of wanted to see more from Kevin White. I know it was his first game, and but I mean, we have a lot of hype in this guy, and he was a 7th overall pick a year ago. So hopefully Cutler, like you said, didn't target him much in that second half after that stop route. So he has to gain Cutler's confidence, and he's just got to make plays, and that will happen hopefully as the season progresses. But I thought the wide receivers did a good job. They did the most with what they can do with the time that Cutler had back there.
Yeah, I agree. The one knock I would have on the wide receivers today would be there's a couple times where Cutler was escaping pressure and just no one came back to the ball to kind of make themselves available for like an outlet pass. Just that was my one knock. I've noticed a couple times where Cutler just kind of boot out like the third down where he just kind of had to run out of bounds because nobody got open. Someone needs to come back to him a little bit and just kind of make themselves available to the quarterback. But that's just my one knock. Overall, they're probably the strongest position on this entire offense today for sure. So let's probably talk about the weakest position.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
Before we move to the offensive line, I want to ask you guys where you thought Zach Miller was today. He was kind of absent, I thought.
Miller was very absent. He had a couple of catches, and they were just kind of, catches that gained yards, weren't really impactful. But I seen him struggle a decent amount in protection today, both in the run and the pass. A couple times he couldn't hold his block during a run, which allowed Langford to get swallowed up pretty early. So I thought that was kind of disheartening.
He also had a very questionable offensive pass interference at one point in the game.
Yeah, I still have no clue why they called that.
What they were looking at there, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, that one's in my notes like, what the hell? Because, I mean, that wasn't a PI at all. But, Nick, yeah, any thoughts on Miller?
Yeah, I just thought that Dow Longs didn't really put a lot of plays that were going to Zach Miller. A lot of them, I mean, if anything, he had those little short passes, but none of it was really oriented towards Zach Miller. And he's going to be a big part of the weapon if for the entire season. He's our starting tight end. He came onto last season at the end of the season. So I want to see if Dow Loggins eventually, puts more plays in for Zach Miller as the season progresses.
I did notice they did run the screen where he scored that touchdown against the Rams last season. They ran that, which was nice, but I think he only gained like 6 yards on that play. So now we'll switch over to the offensive lineman, the long-awaited conversation on this weakest part of the team as of today. So, Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and let you start. Overall thoughts on the offensive line?
Games are won and lost in the trenches. And
Yeah.
I think it's pretty apparent that, I don't like to point the finger, like it was your fault. Like it's a team sport. But those 5 up front really struggled in the second half. Granted, this is one of the top front 7 that we will see all season with Jadeveon Clowney. Whitney Merciless put on a big hit on Jay Cutler today. J.J. Watt was really quiet. But we've seen McKinney get a sack too, as well as John Simon. Those last 2 guys typically don't get sacks. So, they just didn't play very well. But when you only have, I think the guys on TV said 4 practices together, I guess our expectations were a little too high when they brought in Josh Sitton. They kind of lost us the game trying not to point the finger, but that's where games are won and lost. And
You're trying your best not to point that finger.
I am really trying my best not
you
to.
Really
but
are.
This is where, this is where the game was lost in all reality.
It really was. The Bears, let's be honest, especially the entire second half, they lost the point of attack, which lost us the game. And that's fair to say because, that's obviously what happened. All the Bears fans saw it, so that's what happened. Nick, what's your overall thoughts on that line?
No, the offensive line lost us the game, you guys. Let's just be honest here. They lost us the game. And, the first half, it didn't seem – they played all right. And we were able to move the ball. But the second half, holy – and it was terrible. From sacks there coming from all angles. Cutler was pressured, hit hard, multiple plays. And the only thing that I kind of liked when that was all happening, Long actually on the sideline was talking to Bobby Massey and giving it to him, which you need to see that. You need to be held accountable for what you're doing wrong. Yeah, but the offensive line struggled. Like you said, Brandon, this is one of the tougher defenses we're going to play in the season. They've only had a couple practices together, so chemistry's going to get better throughout the season. We're pointing the finger now, but I know this group has a talent to get better as the season progresses. No doubt about it.
No, I agree. And it's funny, I tweeted about that too, like with Long getting after Massey a little bit, because you like to see that. And Long, as of course, he's going to be that leader of that offensive line. So it's nice to see him, hold him accountable, because he should not allow the rusher to get the color that clean. At least get your hands on him. So
Well, first of all, too, in the first half, the offensive line did not look bad at all.
Right. Exactly. And
so I don't know what happened in that second half. I think that Houston just sent more of their guys because they realized that we couldn't keep up with all the weapons that they had. So, I mean, for a half of football, they looked pretty solid because we were winning at halftime.
Exactly. And really, I mean, the interior of their line, I mean, they didn't do too bad. It was really more of those tackles that were just allowing those edge rushers to just get the J time after time again. I mean, both Leno Jr. and Massey really struggled down the stretch here. Nick, I'm curious on your thoughts on this here. How could they improve, moving forward?
I guess maybe with the running backs, if they're going out for a pass, you got to chip those ends just to give Color just a little bit more time. Bring in the tight end, bring in the fullback. So I mean, just anything, because those tackles are really kind of stuck there. We're not fast off the edge, is not nearly as fast as they should have been, because Color, like you said, was getting hit, and those ends were just being untouched at some point. So just bring in extra guys that just chip the ends and just give Cutler more of a chance to throw.
Exactly. All right, so let's go around the horn real quick and just wrap up a final thought on the offense before we switch over to defense here. So, Brandon, go ahead.
They were stagnant, kind of like I said in the previous show. That can't really happen, as we've seen in the preseason. They were stagnant as well. Didn't put up very many points. Put up 14 today, all in the first half. A very good last drive before the half ended there in the first half by Jay Cutler in the offense. But I would say that's the highlight of the offense today.
For sure. Nick?
The Bears show some signs that they could be a really good offense, with Alshon Jeffrey being a one-on-one matchup nightmare, but there's still a lot of improvement. I want to see the offensive line get better. The running game needs to improve, definitely. And, there's definitely improvements to be made.
Yep, improvements need to be made is pretty much what I'm going to resonate here as well. I mean, it's week one. Like I said, 15 weeks to improve. Plenty of time. One of my last things would be, looking back, I do like right before the half that instead of kicking that field goal with that 13 seconds left, that Fox actually had enough faith in Cutler to run a play and find Eddie Royal for that touchdown, which got us to 7 instead of the 3, which, I mean, obviously that doesn't matter now, but looking back, that's nice to see. All right, so let's switch gears and get into the third quarter of our show, which is going to be talking all about the defense. Overall, I thought they did a pretty good job considering, everything that's going on, playing from behind, playing on the field for a long time, getting worn out, but still finding ways to, get some pressure. Could have been more, but plenty to talk about here for the defense. Brandon, I want to start with you. Just overall thoughts real quick.
I thought they played pretty solid. I mean, they gave up 23 points, but that's really not bad. I'd say that's about an average amount what you'd give up. I think that the Bears could have won the game with a little more offense because the defense, I thought, held their own for the most part.
Yeah. Nick?
I just thought the defense, after I was just writing after every defensive series, whenever they stopped, I said the defense bended, but they didn't break each time. So they didn't give up that huge touchdown. They didn't give up like that bone-killing play. But, I thought they played well. They definitely kept the offense in the game. Just, of course, they ended up giving up a touchdown eventually. But I thought they played well for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, really, from the beginning of the game, kind of like the offense. I mean, from the beginning of the game, like I said, the Bears defense was just really good. I mean, started off with that interception like we talked about earlier in the show, and then they force a punt, and then, the Bears were up by a little bit, and then, like you said, Nick, they bend a lot. They allowed the Texans to march all the way down the field, but then they only hold them for a field goal, which was really nice to see. But then, things kind of start breaking a little bit, and then Hopkins just outran Porter on that route, and then he caught that ball in the back of the end zone. And really from there, things kind of just shifted a little bit for that Bears defense. They kind of lost that edge, if you would say, and I think that they had a hard time getting it completely back, even though they never completely lost it, if that makes sense. But Brandon, let's start with those guys up front, the defensive line. What did you see out of them today?
Mitch Unrein really impressed me early on. He was always just a couple steps from getting to Brock Osweiler in time. He had a really nice swim move at one point to get there. He didn't sack him. He didn't have any sacks. but he was forcing Brock Osweiler to get rid of the ball sooner than what he'd wanted to, which was nice to see. Didn't see much of him in the second half. Eddie Goldman was in there on a sack with Leonard Floyd. Very impressive showing by Leonard Floyd as well, I thought, for the most part. Willie Young and Lamar Houston were kind of quiet today.
Surprisingly,
yes. Akeem Hicks was in there on a couple plays today. He had the forced fumble, which was nice to see. So overall, I wouldn't say a solid showing, but they made their presence known today.
Nick, how about you?
For the defensive line, I thought they played okay. Like you said, Unrein was there on a couple of plays. Did make Osweiler have to throw the ball sooner than he had to, but I kind of expected a little bit more from Hicks and Goldman. I know Hicks did have that forced fumble. We didn't recover it, but I would like to have seen the sack. I mean, of course, we would like to see a sack, but I thought that there were still gaping holes in this that the offensive line generated against our defensive line, so they were able to make big runs on us. And but the linebackers, they were okay again. I thought Jarrell Freeman and Danny Trevathan had some. I know Freeman had a huge hit and had played pretty well in coverage, and then Trevathan obviously with the sack. But it was okay. It didn't give the DBs enough time to play in coverage because they didn't get to the quarterback. They didn't really sack Osweiler as much as we would like to see. But it is the first game, so I think eventually that Vic Fangio will get that defense ready to go.
Only 2 total sacks for this, Bears team today, which obviously is a number that needs to improve as we go along the season.
Hey, but looking at last year, we didn't have a sack until the Seattle game in Week 4. So,
hey, improvement. That's we're
my glass is half full.
I like that. Speaking of that duo at inside linebacker, they combined today, guys, for 28 total tackles. I mean, that's nuts. I mean, we said it all throughout the offseason that Jarrell Freeman's going to be a tackling machine. Well, he had 17 tackles. So I think that pretty much results as a tackling machine. But I really enjoyed what I saw out of both of those inside linebackers today. They're always around the football. That's the only other thing they need to do is perhaps force a fumble or just get a turnover, make an impact play besides just wrapping up and making the tackles. But other than that, just looking at, going back to the defensive line, like you guys said, I expected more from Hicks a little bit today. Goldman, for me, I thought he did pretty solid. I thought he won the point of attack more times than not. He finished with 6 tackles as well, plus that half of a sack with that he split with Floyd. And speaking of the rookie, Leonard Floyd, I thought he played really well. He didn't look out of place. He looked pretty good in pass coverage whenever he would drop back, and he needs to work on that pass rush a little bit, get there a little bit quicker. But I really liked what I saw out of him in the run game where even if runs on the opposite side of the field, he still has the speed to close in and get to, Lamar Miller by the time he got back to the line of scrimmage, which is, pretty amazing to see coming from the other side of the field. But overall, I thought they did pretty well. So any other things you guys want to add for those guys up there?
Yeah, Leonard Floyd impressed me very much on one play where there was pressure coming up the middle and Brock had to roll to his left. And Floyd did a very good job of breaking down. He didn't get to tackle him. It was one of the catches by Hopkins on the sideline in the third or fourth quarter. I don't remember off the top of my head. And he was able to get his hand. He didn't deflect the ball, but it was a very good fundamental breakdown. Don't get beat by the quarterback play, which impressed me by Floyd. I figured maybe as a rookie he'd just get sack happy and try and go get him, but he didn't.
That's a very, very solid observation there, Mr. Hazlett. Wow. I can't even talk today. You're welcome. But, Nick, let's go with you. Do you want to talk about the secondary real quick?
The secondary, I thought, obviously with the interception, I wasn't able to actually see the interception because I was running all the way to Buffalo Wild Wings and actually missed it. But I saw the highlights, so that was awesome. But when we sustained, we did okay because there were a couple times where Hopkins just got behind, Porter there. And he was kind of playing from behind and just wanted to put his hands up. And with Hopkins, you just can't do that. He's too good of a receiver to do that. But when DeAndre Hall came in and Glenn had to make the start, they played, for, young guys. They actually stepped up and made some plays. Glenn, stepped up to the task and he had a nice pass breakup on Fuller on the sidelines. And then DeAndre Hall had a breakup in the end zone over there. So I thought they played all right. Harold Jones-Corte is just whenever he makes a hit, he just gets up and he's like hyped up, and that's awesome to see. He's kind of like that energy on that defense. And then Amos, he had a couple of big hits, not a bunch of big plays, but the secondary, with the amount of time that Osweiler had, they did an all right job.
Yep, the Bears were going without Kyle Fuller today, so obviously people had to step up. I thought they did okay. Again, I think they need to do a better job of locating the ball when it's in the air, turning it around and actually locating it. A lot of times they would just put their hands up and not really look, to locate that football. So that's something they need to improve upon, especially if they want to get some interceptions, because we need to force some more turnovers here. But overall, I thought the unit did pretty well considering all the speed that they're going up against. On both sides with Hopkins and Fuller. Fuller, lucky he dropped a couple, but he did come back and make up for that down the stretch. Yeah, go ahead, B.
I forgot this burning question. Who do you guys aware of Houston's receiver stats between Fuller and Hopkins?
Yeah, no, I haven't looked yet. What are they?
Okay. Well, let's play a guessing game first because I'm interested to hear what you guys think. We said a lot of DeAndre Hopkins. Who do you think had more yards, Will Fuller or DeAndre Hopkins?
Oh, Fuller, right?
Yes, he had 107 today.
Okay.
So I think he torched us more than Hopkins did, and like you said, we got lucky that Fuller dropped that one, or that was going to be a touchdown all the way. It's tough to do. I thought Jacoby Glenn played very well, filling in for Kyle Fuller, trying to keep up with the speed that these guys have, and I thought he did all right for the most part. I mean, Will Fuller had the 135-yard touchdown pass, I believe. That was the one where he scored. But it's tough to do when you're playing with a backup trying to keep up with a 4.2 or 4.3 40 in Will Fuller.
Yeah, it's a very tough task indeed. But overall for this defense, for me, I really like the gang tackling that we saw today. That you never really saw one Bear trying to bring down the ball carrier. A lot of wrapping up and a lot of team effort coming around to get that ball carrier. And then even on top of that, a lot of targeting the football. I noticed they're swatting at it, and like we said, Hicks had the one in which he got it out, which was good to see. But overall, I think that this unit definitely has improved compared to the last seasons. Can't wait till we get entirely healthy. We get a Pernell McPhee out there. We get Kyle Fuller back. Then things are going to get interesting, guys, because once we can, solidify out there, I think we're going to be in really good shape. With your final thoughts on defense?
DeAndre Hall stepped in at one point, and I thought he played pretty well. Brock Osweiler had the one pass to Will Fuller where he put it where DeAndre Hall had absolutely no chance, even with his long arms, to get that ball. But I thought DeAndre Hall came in and played pretty well. He was there in run support today, which is nice to see from a rookie cornerback at that.
Exactly, Nick.
I think this defense is going to be fun to watch. Like you said, we'll get Fuller back. We'll get Pernell McPhee back. I think this front seven will be better when they get them, and then they'll be able to create more turnovers, get more sacks. So it was the first game. They bended a lot. Like I said, they didn't break. And I think as the season progresses with Vic Fangio, once he gets all of his players healthy, it's going to be a pretty solid defense.
No, I agree. Another area they need to improve real quick on defense is just getting off the field on third down. They allowed 12 of 20, which comes out to like 60%. So they really need to start working on getting off that field, giving our offense some more possessions to work with. Because honestly, that might be down what some of this boils down to, because the Bears ran 54 plays compared to, Houston 72. But they both teams averaged out with a 4.8 yards per play. So
can I add your third down point?
You can.
That last defensive drive at the third quarter, transitioning into the fourth, the Bears allowed 3 third down conversions. 2 of them to Will Fuller, who ended up scoring on the one wide receiver screen, and the Brock Osweiler quarterback sneak that didn't look like it got a first down, but they marked it a first down. So those are 3 chances to get off the field right in a row, and they couldn't do it. So just add that's something that they need to work on.
Exactly. I mean, when you're on the field, 72 plays, you're going to be tired. But if you can just stop them a couple times on third down, you're really going to cut that number, by a large sum. So let's switch over here, guys, into our fourth quarter of the game. And to start, let's just do a quick summary of the special teams. And if you have any observations on that end, to me, I like Royals' effectiveness in the punt return game, especially early on. Deontay Thompson might want to consider a touchback or two instead of running it out to the 19. Other than that, I think as well that it was kind of a non-factor today, special teams, so it's kind of hard to break it down. Do you guys have anything to add?
Just to add, no Barth today, except for extra points. I like Eddie Royal back there at the punt return when he's healthy, and you pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. Deontay Thompson needs to take a knee every now and then.
All right, Nick, how about you?
I like Eddie Royal back there, but he is a guy that's had like an injury history. So I don't know if I want, because I think Eddie Royal is way more valuable as our slot receiver than he is our punt returner. Granted, he did a great job on that first return, just going from left to right. But I think, like you said, Deontay Thompson definitely needs to take a knee for a couple of those. And I thought they had pretty good coverage on punt and kickoff and just staying in their lanes on the special teams unit.
All right, so let's get into a couple of fan poll questions and results here. I sent out one right before the game was over, and I asked Bears fans to just simply grade this Bears game. And the results came pretty much probably where we're going to grade this game. 56% of Bears fans gave this game a C grade, while 36% gave it a D. I don't think I would have gave it a D. I think C is right up my alley. C is exactly where I would put it. If I would have to grade this game at halftime, I give it a B plus A minus. But this is a 60-minute game, not 30. So I'm going to give it a C. How about you guys go around the horn and grade this game real quick?
I'll give it a C plus. Like you said, it's a 60-minute, not a 30-minute game. So the first half really ups the grade. The second half really brings the grade down to the C plus area.
Nick?
I'll have to go solid C. Like you said, the first half, you definitely could have given that half a B, and then just the second half was just one that you kind of want to forget about. The offensive line struggled, defense, gave up some touchdowns, but yeah, I'd give this a solid C. It's average. It's basically average.
Exactly, which is what happened. So let's go with that. And then a couple of replies to tweet I asked you to sum up their thoughts, and I told them I read the best on air. Bill said they are who we thought they are. Talented and young, but not deep enough. All right. And then one from Paxton Coatsy said the game was close for so long and we were competitive, but to have a shutout in the second half is frustrating. Offensive line was poor. Yep, that sounds about right.
I do like the they are who we thought they are.
Yeah, exactly, which is a good plug-in for the preview to the preview show. Brandon, do you have that?
I do. Next week, in week 2, we play the Philadelphia Eagles, who beat the Cleveland Browns today 29-10. We will break that game down more on Thursday in our preview game show. So make sure you tune in for that. Carson Wentz got to start today. I'm interested to look at his stats and break him down a little bit more.
Sounds great. So that leads us to our 2-minute warning. And this is where we're going to wrap up our thoughts on this game, put it into a season-long perspective, and look ahead to next week. Nick, you're the new guy in these post-game shows, so I'm going to have to kick it over to you first. Give us your 2-minute warning.
So let's go on the offense first. I think the offensive line will get far better as the season progresses. Once that offensive line gets chemistry, you're going to see Jay Cutler with more time. He'll hit his receivers. I think Alshon Jeffrey is going to keep doing what he's doing. Hopefully Kevin Cutler's trust back, starts to target him some more. Once we start getting healthy with Fuller and Pernell McPhee back, I think this defense will be fun to watch, generate more sacks, more turnovers. And then special teams, hopefully we'll see Barth and see what he can do. But there's a lot of upside, I feel like. It's week 1. The Bears were in it for the longest time, didn't have enough offense. The offensive line was still young. It still haven't had that chemistry. So as the season progresses, we'll see the Bears get a lot better.
All right. Brandon, your 2-minute warning?
Just to kind of go along with what Nick was saying, the offense is going to get better. I think the offensive line will make leaps, not necessarily bounds, going into next week. A little more time together, but a little more chemistry. We'll see that the pass rush won't be quite as significant as it was in Houston today, so that'll give Jay Cutler more time to find his receivers, give room for Jeremy Langford to run the ball, and it'll all just flow a little bit nicer. Defense, they're only going to get stronger. I really liked what Darrell Freeman and Danny Trevathan brought today. Eddie Goldman looked pretty good. Physical-wise, his conditioning looked a little bit better, so I think he'll be a bigger factor next week, as well as Lamar Houston and Willie Young. We didn't see very much of them. I imagine they are licking their chops when they get to see a rookie quarterback next week. So I think all in all, it will be a better game next week.
I'm going to kind of have to just go off of that offense. I mean, all 3 phases are going to improve as the season goes around. I mean, that's just obvious. But, offensively, again, it's going to take some time for that line to kind of gel. And once they do, and they're not going up against as vaunted of a defense like the Texans, again, it's just going to make everything a lot easier. The Bears are going to score more than 14 points more times than not. So I'm not too worried on that end. And talking about, Kevin White real quick, he's going to have those growing pains, and I think we're going to watch him. And it's okay, especially after he had to take a year off of football. It's going to happen, but he's a seventh overall pick, so he definitely needs to start proving his worth here. Before October is when I want him to be kind of ready for this season for sure. Other than that, on defense, again, I think the pass rush is going to start hitting home here as we move through this season. We're only going to get stronger with Fuller coming back, McPhee coming back, and that unit as well does need to take some time to gel because, that's what defenses do. A couple of other last-second stats that I think are something we should talk about real quick. On defense, I was really pleased with their red zone prowess, I would say. They allowed the Texans of only 1 of 3 attempts in the red zone to get touchdowns, so that's not all too bad. That's only 33%. The Bears, on the other hand, were 2 for 2 once they got into the red zone, so two thumbs up for that. And then penalties. The Bears only had 4 penalties today for 30 yards. Not too bad. I remember there was a few games last season in which there were too many flags to count, so to only see 4 being thrown on our end and called for on the Bears is not too shabby. But again, this Bears team is going to get better each and every week, and I'm really excited to see how much they can improve that, improvement from week 1 to week 2, just getting some tape out there, learning who you are a little bit, and just kind of building off of that. So do you guys have any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
We have 15 more games for the season. Don't hang your heads on this one.
All right, Nick?
Stay committed. Keep faith in the Bears. They will get better, you guys.
All right. So I want to thank you again for everyone who is watching live or to the replay. And, of course, I would also like to thank all of our podcast listeners. So, again, the Bears lost today, unfortunately, 23-14. My name is Will DeWitt. For my co-hosts Brandon and Nick, we are going to be back on Thursday to break down the upcoming game against the Eagles. So for my co-hosts, we will see you then. Bear down, Chicago.